Andrew here, and welcome to today's video where I thought it would be fun to have a look at a game that many people might not even know actually exists, or if you do know that it exists, there's a good chance you maybe haven't actually played it, or maybe even seen footage of it in action, and that is Mario and Wario for the Super Famicom, or Super Nintendo as it is known outside of Japan, released in 1993. And this is just such a weird game, and my knowledge of its existence originates from like Pokemon Blue. When I played it back in the day, there's a little bit of text in there that references it, or even there's a trophy of it in Smash Brothers. But still, for so long, I had really no idea exactly what was going on inside this game until years later when I picked it up, and to my surprise, it is actually a game that is played exclusively with the Super Famicom or Super Nintendo mouse. So I mean, when most people think of the mouse, they very likely think of Mario Paint, the game that the mouse was always bundled with when you bought it outside of Japan. Although, as you can see right here, this is actually a box for the Japanese version of the mouse, which is identical to the all other versions, but in Japan you could buy the mouse separately and not necessarily with Mario Paint. It's really cool because there's actually a sticker on this box from back when it was sold in Japan, probably new, for 8,880 yen. So I mean, conversion rates and such change over the years, but that's about let's just say around $90 at the time when it was first released. So I guess if you didn't care much for Mario Paint and maybe you just wanted to play a game like Mario and Wario, you could have bought the mouse separately, but then that's the question, why was this never localized to North America? And that is potentially because, since the mouse was never sold separately outside of Japan, you had to buy Mario Paint to get the mouse. Maybe Nintendo figured, bringing over a game that could only be played with the mouse and not at all with the controller, that barrier to entry, having to have already owned Mario Paint and such, was too much for a game that you would have to play with the mouse. But they brought over games like Yoshi's Safari and such, which require the Super Scope, and that's kind of just as odd as the mouse. But I suppose since the mouse was a bundle in with Mario Paint, there was a whole kind of range of weird stuff going on there. Enough about the game actually being released though. The point is, today I want to introduce it to people who may not know anything about it. So in this video, we're going to start off by looking what's going on. What does the back of the box have to say about the game? What does the instruction manual have to say about the game? We're going to learn all about just what is actually going on, and then we're going to play the actual game itself. I'm going to give you all my thoughts about what is going on in there. Again, kind of touching on that why wasn't it localized kind of thought. It's funny because inside of the game, I don't think there's actually a single Japanese character. It is all you can just read it. If you can read English, you can read everything that is going on inside the game. So all that would have needed to be localized was, of course, the box and the manual. So keep that in mind when we're playing it. Again, I think the reason it probably wasn't localized was because of that mouse shenanigans I was talking about, where you had to own Mario Paint to have the mouse, and maybe they figured that was just too high of a barrier to entry for the game. But enough about getting your hands on the game. The point is, you're here now, so let's have a look at Mario and Wario. And here is a look at the box. Before we get into things really, I definitely want to point out that I just love the shape of Super Famicom boxes, and they are very close in size to actually VHS cassette boxes from back in the day, and if they are both on a shelf, it's actually very easy to kind of get the two of them mixed up. I just always think that's really neat though. I just love that the shape of the box was even different in Japan. Otherwise though, the box looks exactly as you would expect with the name and such on all the sides, with a really good picture of Wario kind of looking menacingly over Mario and another character who we will be introduced to in a second. I really liked that back in the day, especially around the Super Nintendo and original Game Boy days, that Wario was a really kind of formidable adversary to Mario, and there was a number of games where they kind of faced off against each other. I really wish they would bring that kind of rivalry back today, rather than the only times when Mario and Wario meeting are in party games and sports games and such these days. But I digress. Otherwise, on the back of the box, this is where we truly are going to be introduced to just what this game is all about. It mentions at the top here that it's a new style of gameplay where you use the mouse and it can be controlled with just a single mouse button to play this game. Otherwise, it mentions that the dastardly Wario has placed a bucket on top of Mario's head, causing him trouble. And like this, you won't be able to see anything. So now Mario has to hurry up and find Luigi, who will be able to remove the bucket from his head. Using the mouse, you control a fairy named Wonder, and you use their magic to defeat enemies and do all sorts of other things to help you proceed through the level. So I mean, there's the fairy wonder right there. So it mentions that there's a completely new style of gameplay again with the mouse and such, and it offers a variety of different blocks. There's stars to collect and all sorts of other things going on that creates, a heart-pounding, nerve-wracking, experience full of variety that lasts for 100 stages. And right here it mentions that it is only compatible with the mouse and absolutely cannot be played with the controller. So that is what we can expect from Mario and Wario. Already it's sounding, like a pretty bizarre game, not one that you normally expect from the rather streamlined Mario universe these days, but we're also going to have a look, of course, inside the manual, and have a little bit of a closer examination of just what the story is going on here. And here is the manual. So I do not plan to read through the entire thing here, as I hope to share the mechanics of the game and how exactly it works with everyone when we play it in a couple of minutes. But what I do want to show you all is actually on page 2 here, and that is the story. Because in typical retro gaming fashion, there's no kind of cutscene or anything at the beginning of the game that really explains what is going on. If you wanted to understand the premise, you had to read it from the manual. So that's exactly what I plan to do for everyone here, so that once we get into the game, you really have a better understanding of what exactly it is that we are doing. And from the top here, it reads as follows. This is the Forest of Fairies. In this forest, fairies live, and it is said that one who sees a fairy will be brought happiness. One day, Mario heads to this forest in search of one of the legendary fairies. Peach, Yoshi, and Luigi come along as well, although that's actually what was supposed to be the case. However, suddenly, Luigi goes missing, so the remaining 3 of them split up to search for the missing Luigi. Then, in the sky, a strange engine sound can be heard. What could that be? Turns out it's actually Wario riding his beloved bulldog plane, and from the sky he throws out a bucket. Boom! With a thud, the bucket lands on Mario's head with a direct hit. Wah! Now I'm not able to see anything! Alright, sorry about my, my incredible Mario impression there. Then, in the forest, a fairy of the forest, Wonder, sees this. He wants to help in some way, although he's too small to remove the bucket from his head. So like that, instead, Wonder uses their magic staff to help guide Mario in hopes of finding Luigi, who would be able to help him out. So that's the story of this game. Definitely not your typical Mario game premise, but that was just really neat about games that typically featured Mario and Wario. You definitely get a different feel from them than, some of the other Mario games that we've seen in more recent years. So, with the story and all that out of the way, hopefully you all have an understanding of what exactly the game is about, but now it's time to find out exactly how it plays. So it's time to get our game set up. Unfortunately, without any kind of console modding or extra steps, it is not possible to play Japanese games on a Super Nintendo that is not from Japan. This isn't because of any kind of electrical or software related region locking, but rather if you look inside the Super Nintendo itself, you can see that there are 2 kind of pins in there which prevent non-North American games from being inserted. If we look at our copy of Mario and Wario here, you will see that there is no place on the back of the cartridge to kind of make room for those tabs. Meanwhile, if we compare it to a North American game, you can see that on the back there is indeed a space where those tabs can kind of just be inserted into, thus allowing us to insert our North American game. Thankfully, there are a number of workarounds for this. One of them being, if you have a game and you're not afraid of doing a little bit of damage to it, this person hilariously actually kind of took chunks out of the back of their cartridge so that it would be insertable into a North American Super Nintendo. Definitely not the method that I recommend. A lot of people actually also take the pins out of this part, because I mean, if you take them out of the Super Nintendo with like a pair of pliers or something, you can then of course insert anything that you want to it, but you will be damaging your Super Nintendo. So again, that's not one that I would necessarily recommend. You can also find yourself an adapter for playing region or games from any region. You just insert your game into the top like that, and then because the bottom is shaped in such a way that regardless of what you are inserting it into, those pins inside of the console will not be a problem. And the other thing that you can do is if you have the security bit that opens up old Nintendo cartridges, you can actually open up a cartridge from a North American game, take your Japanese game, open it up as well, switch the boards, and then you'll be able to insert this part into your Super Nintendo without any kind of trouble. It will have the game that you wish to play inside it. So unfortunately, again, if you buy a Super Nintendo game from a region other than North America, you will not be able to play it instantly out of the box. But those are definitely some, methods to keep in mind, so that if you wish to enjoy Mario and Wario as well, you can. But with that said, let us get our game prepared there, and we can now begin our journey into exploring what is up with Mario and Wario. And this is the title screen of Mario and Wario. I think it gets the point across about as well as it possibly could. And pressing either the left or right button on the mouse at this point will bring you to the next screen. Of course, remember that every single operation in this game is going to be pulled off by either moving the mouse or pressing one of those two buttons, with the left button being the main one that causes things to happen and controls things, while the right button is mainly just pause and not used for too much else. So the next screen actually allows you to choose which character you would like to play as. From the story that we read and from the title of the game, you wouldn't maybe expect to actually, have that option. You would figure you would just be playing as Mario the whole game, but you can actually also play as Peach and Yoshi, and depending on the character you choose does actually change things up a little bit, but we will talk about that once we really dive into the levels. Also on this screen is the option to change the mouse movement from slower to faster, and I definitely recommend having it up as high as it can be, because you're just putting yourself at a disadvantage while playing the game otherwise. After that, you are actually brought to a stage select screen, which looks much like one that you would expect from a Mega Man game, where you have 8 worlds to choose from, and then you can probably guess what happens after you beat them all. And something that might not be so obvious from the screen is that if you actually click the character at the bottom that is running by, that will take you back to the character select screen. Although the only way you would really figure that out, other than just by trying it on your own, is it does mention it in the instruction book, but I mean, a back button would have worked too, guys. Anyway, let us pick a level and actually jump into the game. Each level begins with Wario dropping an object on whatever character you have chosen's head, and that object is all completely aesthetic. Of course, the first level, it makes sense for it to be a bucket, but otherwise, the other levels, it's actually something different, which is kind of a neat little touch. But this is what a stage of the game looks like. There are just blocks all over the place, and you need to use the mouse and control the fairy to kind of guide Mario or Peach or Yoshi to Luigi at the end of the level, who will remove the bucket off of the character's head. And then that's actually the premise of every single level. So again, from the story that we read, you would think that, maybe the end goal of the game is to find Luigi, but actually every single stage ends with that premise, which I thought was a little bit disappointing when I found it out, because the story makes it sound a little bit more epic than the game actually is, but it is just kind of a simple Mario game, so I guess shouldn't have expected too much. The actual gameplay portion, though, involves using the mouse to safely guide your character from the beginning of the stage to the end of the stage without being destroyed by a variety of obstacles that lay in your path along the way. Once your character starts moving at the beginning of the stage, they will not stop. So it definitely is kind of a mind game to, kind of look at the stage and figure out what kind of components you need to interact with at what time and in what order. You can click your character to switch the direction that they are walking, and along the way, there are a variety of blocks that you need to deal with, including flip-flop blocks that, when not solid and then clicked on, will turn solid, and then again, when solid and clicked, will return to being not solid. There are timer blocks that, when clicked, will turn solid for a set amount of time before disappearing again. There are cracked blocks that, once clicked, will become destroyed and will not return for the remainder of the stage unless you lose a life. There are balloon blocks that will inflate and deflate at set amounts of time, and there's nothing that you can do as the player to kind of change that. If it is deflated and you wish to, use it, you'll just need to kind of, control your character back and forth until it inflates again and you are able to walk over it. There are switch blocks that, when clicked, will cause all switch blocks of the same color to either appear or disappear, while causing another color of switch block to either appear or disappear. There are also coin blocks that you can click to receive up to 10 coins, and coins work just as they do in almost any other Mario game, where getting 100 of them equals an extra life. There are springs that when you step on them will shoot you upwards a set height, and there's nothing that you can do to jump over them or anything like that. There's actually no jump button in this game, which is very strange, I suppose, for a Mario game. There are invisible blocks, of which there is absolutely no indication that they actually exist. Where they do, you kind of just need to, you know, look at the terrain of the level, think, well, maybe there could, you know, there's the potential for a bridge to be made here, and then just kind of click at random and hope that they appear. And there are also elevators that, when interacted with, will send you to the very top of where they lead. So there's absolutely no way to get off of them, you know, part way, even if it looks like it may be possible to. You'll have to find a different way to get to that location. But once you touch an elevator, you are completely stuck on it until you reach the top. The only thing that you can really do at that point is click your character to change their direction to, you know, whichever way you wish to walk when you get to the top. Otherwise, along the way, there are, of course, tons of spikes all over the place, which will kill you instantly. And there are also a variety of enemies, including Pidgeots, which I think is really strange, since I believe that the only other game that they appear in is Super Mario Bros. 2, or in Japan's case, Super Mario Bros. USA, and that was just, you know, all a dream. If you have ever beat that game, you would know. There are also Swooper Bats, Sparkies, cannons that shoot fire, which are probably, you know, some of the most difficult enemies to deal with, and all sorts of other obstacles. The other way to die is to run out of time, which is not too much of an issue in the earlier stages, but near the end of the game it can definitely be something that kind of looms over you. And thankfully there is no fall damage in this game, so you can actually fall from, you know, as far as you possibly can, and you'll still be perfectly okay. No need to worry about dying from that. When it comes to the characters, Mario moves at an average speed, while Yoshi moves faster and Peach moves slower. Like with the mouse speed though, I definitely recommend going with Yoshi, because there's not really any benefit to playing with one of the slower characters. Being able to move quickly, move past obstacles at a fast rate, and even traverse things like the balloon blocks, you know, faster before they disappear, is a very useful thing to be able to do. I guess if you play as like Mario or Peach, it may give you a little bit more time to think and prepare for what's coming ahead, but I definitely do not see them really being a benefit in any way, especially because you're also going against the time limit, don't forget. And in the later worlds, I'm pretty sure that if you played as Peach, you would probably not have enough time to beat some of the levels. Regardless of which character you pick though, there are unfortunately times where a lot of waiting is required. And one thing I definitely did not like so much about Mario and Wario was the times where you were constantly just clicking your character back and forth, waiting for a block to appear, or one of the many times when you were standing on an elevator just waiting for yourself to rise to the top. That was definitely one of the things that I felt was a little less fun about Mario and Wario, unfortunately. As far as items go and things that will help you out along the way, almost every single stage has 4 stars hidden in it, and picking up all 4 stars will give you a 1-up, so they're very similar to like Dragon Coins and such in later Super Mario Bros. Games. You can also click them and it causes them to kind of dance, although that's a completely pointless feature, but I guess, you know, kind of something fun to do if you're just standing around anyway. There's also mushrooms, which you can pick up, and they just add a little bit onto your timer, although again, especially in the earlier levels, this isn't too much of a necessity. But in the later levels, when they actually start to appear more often, which makes sense as the difficulty increases, they are nice to have around. And there are even 1-up mushrooms that you can find as well, which would naturally give you an instant 1-up. Each level or stage consists of 10 individual rooms, and after clearing all of them, you actually face off against Wario in what I wouldn't call so much a boss fight, but almost more of like a congratulatory minigame where he just flies back and forth across the screen, and clicking him will give you coins until eventually you click him enough times and his plane kind of explodes. As the levels go on, Wario's pattern does kind of change a bit as he flies through the air, but again, there's absolutely zero way to actually lose this minigame, so it's not like, you know, he's getting more difficult per se, it's just kind of changing things up a little bit. Another thing to note about the levels is that in the first world, all levels actually take place within kind of one screen size, so you can see absolutely everything that is going on right from the get-go. But starting from World 2 and onwards, all stages are actually bigger than you can just see on your screen at once. This definitely makes things a lot more complicated and requires a lot more thinking when trying to, you know, progress from the beginning to the end, especially if you want to get all of these stars along the way. What you can actually do though before you begin the level is you can scroll the mouse up and around the stage, so you can kind of, see what there is to expect. And also, anytime during the level, if you right-click on the mouse to pause the game, you can again scroll around to see what is going on. The problem is, though, that if you use the Super Nintendo mouse pad as you're technically supposed to, the mouse pad is too small, and it's very difficult and kind of uncomfortable to scroll around the stage in this way. So what I actually do is I just get rid of the mouse pad, and as long as you are playing on a flat surface, you are generally okay. One thing to, of course, note about the Super Nintendo mouse, though, is that it is a ball mouse and not an optical mouse, which many people are, likely much more familiar with today. The ball mouse, again, another piece of old technology similar to the Super Mario phone that I recently showed, where many people might not even know that that was actually a thing that existed back in the day. So unfortunately, if you do play it with the original Super Nintendo mouse, you might have a little bit of difficulty, controlling compared to if you play it on some newer technology. But I guess, back in the day, if you want the true experience, grab that ball mouse and, be prepared for some crazy stuff to ensue. So with the workings of the levels out of the way, I do want to talk a little bit about how the game looks and sounds. Look-wise, I have to say that I think the appearance is very nice. I really like the visual touches in the backgrounds in particular. It's so neat to see, in like the ice stage, there are Rexes, frozen in the ice in the background, or Blargs in the background of the lava stages, or Pokies in the background of the desert stages. It really does, just feel really cool to see those shoutouts to other Super Mario games in this game. It definitely makes it feel a little less like just a puzzle game with Mario characters stuck in. Otherwise, though, overall the graphics in the foreground that you actually interact with are pretty basic. It's just a lot of blocks with a lot of, different patterns on them. It would have been neat to actually see, like in the grass stages, maybe have some, grass or wood themed blocks rather than it just always being the basic square checkered things. Sound-wise, though, I'm unfortunately a little bit disappointed in this area, considering that the Super Nintendo is the same console that had the Donkey Kong Country games and the Mega Man X games, and thinking of the music that they provided us with, there's a lot to be desired in Mario and Wario, and unfortunately, considering how many stages there actually are, the music is not very memorable, and it definitely does not, make your gameplay experience really that much better. Another thing, of course, that needs to be mentioned about the gameplay itself is that, as mentioned on the back of the box, there are 100 stages, although there's technically actually a little bit more than that after you beat the game, although I don't want to, spoil too much about that for when all of you, go out and play this game after this review, I'm sure. But one thing that this game is extremely, massively, severely lacking is any form of save or password feature. So that means that if you are playing this on the original Super Nintendo, you have no choice but to play through all 100 plus stages in one sitting, unless you leave your Super Nintendo on all night or while you're out for the day or whatever like that. And I think that that is absolutely insane. I really enjoyed my time with Mario and Wario when I first popped the game in. But then, as I began to realize that there was no way to kind of save my progress should I wish to quit, that was when I really began to feel how tedious the game is. I think that Mario and Wario in small doses is fun, and I'm a fan of the Professor Layton games, so I know all about, puzzle games, and I love just solving, things like this. But at the same time, I just think that sitting down and having to focus on nothing but this mouse clicking, blocks appearing, constant walking for hours on end without any way to really take a good break from it and come back later when your mind is fresh, it is really, really, really hard to deal with. So if I have one complaint about this game, more than anything else that I could possibly complain about, it is the fact that there is no way to play this game in chunks, and that it forces you to, just fry your brain constantly with the puzzles that this game has to offer, which is really unfortunate. It's not like, even if they didn't want to spend the money on the board with the battery and all that, there's no reason that they could not have inserted a password feature, even with the way that the worlds are not linear. I think that if Mega Man can do it, Mario and Wario should have been able to do it. So I was severely disappointed when I found out that there was no way to really save your progress. And like the title screen even has like a spot where it keeps track of your high score, and it's like, it's just a kick to the knees because there's no reason to even keep track of that if it all just disappears when you turn the game off anyway. Tediousness due to not having a save or password feature aside though, I do think that Mario and Wario is just such a cool concept, and it is really fun kind of figuring out each individual puzzle, and then once you find that solution, it just feels so good. Some levels even have more than one solution and one way to get to the end, especially if you're trying to get all the stars, so I think that that's a lot of fun to deal with. It would have been really neat though if this game did have some kind of, record-keeping function where maybe it would, remember if you found all of the stars in the level and such. I think that there is definitely a lot more potential to be had here, and in the end there is unfortunately a little bit of an empty experience. Thankfully though, if you do get game over along the way, you are not kicked all the way back to the beginning of the game. You do just kind of go back to the beginning of the world that you ended on. One thing that I have noticed about this game, due to the presence of things like fairies, which are not typically found in Mario games, along with the presence of enemies such as Pidgeot, which are obviously only really in, Super Mario Bros. 2, the version that was localized outside of Japan, is that there are a lot of similarities between the world that Mario and Wario takes place in and Subcon from Super Mario Bros. 2 and Super Mario USA. It almost makes me wonder if that is actually what is going on here. This game is just so strange because it is actually all just another dream happening in Mario's head. It would actually make a lot of sense when you think about it, and the only items that are really in this game that, come from the Mario universe include coins, mushrooms, and 1-ups and stars, all of which are also in Super Mario Bros. 2. You can even, select your own character just like in Mario 2, so I would not be surprised if, this Subcon theory actually holds a little bit of water. But with that said, I hope that you do all see kind of the potential in Mario and Wario, and maybe if you do try it, you will find some fun in it too. It's a game that could have been better, but I'm still happy that it exists because anytime that Mario and Wario face off, it is sure to be a good time. And there you have it, that is my look at Mario and Wario, just a very weird game that was never localized to anywhere other than Japan. It would have been perfect, have on like the Wii Shop back in the day, since they used to put games on there that were never necessarily released outside of Japan. I just kind of give you a disclaimer that if there's any text in here that you don't understand, that you have to deal with it yourself. But again, there was obviously nothing actually in this game that needed to be translated, and it would have been perfect to play it with like the Wii remote, or maybe if they put it on the 3DS with the stylus, or even on the Switch today, if they ever put Super Nintendo games on Nintendo Switch Online, it would be the perfect candidate, to play with the motion controllers of the Switch. So that is really cool. I hope that you enjoyed having a look at it. Maybe you're like me and you played Pokemon or Smash Brothers back in the day and picked up on those little hints of this game's existence, but otherwise Nintendo has just really never made it clear that this game was a thing in anywhere but Japan. So I hope you had fun hearing what I had to say about that, and I hope you'll join me next time when we look at something different. So thanks, and see you later.